Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar, and today we gotta talk about the biggest data breach possibly in human history has actually happened. And I know I basically make this title a lot, but what can I say? You know, the entire hacking world and industry basically keeps one-upping itself, alright? There's not much to say. Now, remember a couple days ago we talked about AT&T and how they had a massive hack where literally everything for its user base got leaked out. And a massive leak that, you know, like I said, when you combine leaks together, you can build profiles on individuals, and that can be used for scamming and the most deceptive reasons imaginable, okay? It's one of those things where I say if you ever are scared of identity theft, anytime you are caught in a breach, change your passwords. Call up those credit monitors and make sure you are not actually used in a scam. Now, how did that actually occur? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Snowflake, okay? It is a company, a cloud computing company, that tons of big companies like AT&T, banks, so on and so forth, use as a data storage and analytics service, okay? So this one company was the actual issue in all of this, and they were the ones that are so heavily compromised that their clients, who are big companies, by the way, again, might I reiterate, have actually had their own users' information leak because of this. Now, whose fault is this, ladies and gentlemen? Well, that's the question we're getting to today. Now, last time we looked into this situation, I had actually looked at a company known as Mandiant. Now, for anybody that doesn't know what Mandiant is effectively a cybersecurity company that is a subsidiary of Google. Okay, you can tell it in the coloring of the logo, but it is generally designed to help fight against organizations like this. Now, Mandiant, alongside Snowflake, actually had made a post where they talked about detecting and preventing unauthorized user access. So as they say, Brad Jones here, the cinema snob, I guess, similar name, as part of our commitment to transparency, which any company should be transparent if anything has been fucked up like this, they basically said that, yes, there has been information that has leaked. So for instance, they said our key findings indicated that we have not identified evidence suggesting any of this was caused by any vulnerability or breach of their platform. It was literally the users, the people that use their service, having their credentials stolen, right? As we discussed in the AT&T video. We have not identified evidence suggesting this activity was caused by compromised credentials of any of their personnel. So it literally was all pointed towards the customers, not the employees of this company. And it appears to be a targeted campaign directed at users with single-factor authentication. Now, I want to remind you people that when it comes to big companies like AT&T, banks even, Ticketmaster, anybody caught in this breach that wasn't using multi-factor authentication should absolutely be hung and quartered by the fucking companies that are hired, okay? Because it is literally the one actual issue allegedly in this situation that caused the loss of tons of data. You know, you can be as paranoid as you want. I'm going to give you a great example. As a YouTuber, that when I see my peers getting hacked all the time, I am one of the most paranoid individuals out there. Virtual machines, everything sandboxed, firewalled up the ass, okay? When I run software on my computer that is a little bit sketchy, it's always running in virtual machines and layers of sandboxes that I know for a fact software is not escaping from, okay? There could be a chance, but generally it's very little. Obviously, not all of my peers have that expertise or knowledge, and it's understandable, right? Sometimes somebody might run a piece of software like, I don't know, a cracked version of Adobe because they don't want to pay for a subscription fee, which, sure, fine, that's up to you. But if you run malware and it steals your YouTube credentials, login tokens, then you are absolutely putting yourself at risk. And it's one of the things that I see all the time. If YouTubers that I know, that I have taught, can actually go through the levels of paranoid security to protect their channels, I think big companies like AT&T, especially when you are running high-level management, you should be even more careful than a YouTuber for protecting information. The fact that some of these big accounts didn't have multi-factor authentication or were forced to basically have it is actually a massive red flag right there, one that cannot be overlooked. So they were basically like, yeah, you should enable that on all your accounts, okay? Set up VPN rules so only traffic from authorized areas can access, which again, I reiterate why this wasn't even happening in the fucking first place, okay? I have these basic rules and setups on my home computer. AT&T and a lot of these companies allegedly didn't even have that. So to understand this, you have to look at Snowflake's actual hack from the beginning. Now, Mandiant posted this entire situation where they actually showcase an attack diagram. We've seen this. So basically, an info stealer gets sent to a customer of Snowflake, not you and I, these companies and the managers that are actually interfacing with that Snowflake software for big companies. They're the ones that get info stealer malware. And allegedly, it was actually talked about that this malware could have been something known as Luma C2. So according to this Luma C2, one of the actual Russian websites that are selling this right now on the dark web, sell it for as low as $250, $500 for a professional plan, $1,000 for a corporate plan, and if you want the source code for the panel and styler and the right to sell this, you can go as high as 20,000 US dollars, assuming, okay? So this is actually insane. This is what we call, ransomware, malware as a service, okay? These guys create the software, some hacker purchases it, uses it against the Snowflake customers, and gets their information, allegedly. Now, using this information, according to Mandiant, they had used the credentials to launch something known as UNC 5537. They logged in with those stolen credentials, and once they gained access to those Snowflake instances, they had basically ran surveillance, and once they had figured out what they wanted, they had then exfiltrated that information, and the rest is history, right? Now, some of the targets in this situation include AT&T, Santander Bank, okay? A bank, for crying out loud, okay? There's not that many to pick from, so if you're somebody that's super careful with your information, well, allegedly, some dipshit at the bank's higher management caused your information to be spilled out, so you could be as careful as you want. The one dumb human being caused issues for you. Ever bought something from Ticketmaster and you gave them your information? It might have been stolen in a data breach. Advanced Auto Parts needed to get something fixed up? Well, you might have lost your information here. Neiman Marcus, are you buying overpriced dog shit? Well, you might have got your information stolen and your money also completely wiped out, okay? Some of this stuff is not worth the prices you're paying, but that's a whole different fucking story, okay? Now, of course, if you looked on the dark web, for instance, you could see that Neiman Marcus Group had information that was leaked out, sent for people. And if you look carefully, the group behind it is Shiny Hunters, the same people that we looked at just before with the AT&T hack. And when you look at the actual detailing for it, you can even see that Neiman Marcus effectively said that an unauthorized third party gained access to a database platform that was used by that group. So the problem is, it's not Snowflake's fault. It's not even entirely the fault of these companies. It's just the one person inside the company that had access to this, the credentials to that database, was stupid enough to unfortunately launch an info stealer malware, right? Which unfortunately, I could say it could happen to anyone, okay? I'm calling this person an idiot, but that's kind of out of just anger looking at it. So when looking at the campaign, the actual timeline, according to Mandiant, April 14th was when they had the earliest evidence of anybody getting access to these Snowflake customer instances, right? April 17th was the earliest evidence of Frostbite usage, which is the malware that was basically used to scan these databases and then run the exfiltration. So obviously, Mandiant jumps in 2 days later to investigate all the data that was stolen from an unknown database. May 14th, about a month later, they identify that it wasn't just one database that was hit, multiple impacted databases happened. So about a week later, Mandiant notifies Snowflake about this problem and law enforcement for ongoing campaigns that were targeting multiple instances. And of course, 2 days later, then on these dark web forums, you started to see the actual advertisement of that customer data. And of course, the cat was out of the bag. Snowflake, in that actual show, that blog post I showed you earlier, that forum post, they basically told everyone, shit's fucked up. Here's any guidance we can offer. And that's when, of course, the cat comes out of the bag, and now we're talking about this whole situation today. So if you're wondering, Why is your personal information just floating around on the internet? It might be because of the largest data breach that I believe has actually happened. Okay, AT&T was bad enough that it made the news, but this is, if you tabulate all of the actual targets that have been hit, it's pretty bad, okay? Because these are not small targets. Attacking a company like this, their clients hold information on thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people at a time. So when Mandiant was looking at it, right, they basically said that the threat actor used snowflake credentials that were previously exposed via multiple variants. So one of them was Luma, but they also saw Vidar, Rise Pro, Redline, which we've actually covered, Raccoon Stealer, Meta Stealer, and basically once all of this stuff was grabbed, according to their analysis, at least 79.7% of the accounts leveraged by the actor had prior credential exposure. So the earliest known infection was back in November 2020. Mandiant identified hundreds of customers' credentials exposed since 2020, which again, their customers are not like you and I. They're big companies, right? For the most part. So effectively what had happened was they had started to intrude using these stolen credentials. So effectively, attackers often obtain credentials due to password reuse, so people who use the same password on multiple websites, or users downloading Trojan software, like we literally saw with Disney, downloading a fucking game mod that caused Disney to lose like a terabyte of information to furries, for crying out loud. And it's because of all this that, you know, when looking into these accounts, the problem is some of them just basically had no multi-factor authentication. So according to these guys, what had happened was if compromised by malware, a single contractor's laptop can facilitate threat actor access across multiple organizations, often with IT and administrator level privileges. So when they were looking into what these tools were used, initial access basically was happening via a native web-based UI. So Snowflake's CLI tool running on a Windows server. Mandiant identified additional access leveraging an attacker named utility, which was, our word flake, okay? Which Mandiant basically had tracked as Frostbite. So looking into log entries, and they've redacted information and whatnot, what they had effectively even found out was that they were using similar SQL commands across numerous instances to basically start staging the data. So effectively, they were using these commands to show tables, which allowed them to perform reconnaissance, basically seeing which databases and tables they wanted to get, especially ones with customer information. They had selected which tables to download, which ones that were interested right here, then listing more to create temporary stages. They had created temporary stages here to stage the data, which at that point, once they had started copying this data to these temporary areas, they could then launch and exfiltrate the information and then put it, package it, and send it out on the dark web to sell for whatever monetary gains they wanted. So it was over the couple of months that we saw over here that shit really got bad, okay? It was to a point now where now we're just sitting about how to basically deal with the wildfire that's going on, right? That's effectively what's happened. Now, over the weekend with the AT&T situation, one of the actual publications, Wired, even said that AT&T basically paid a hacker around $370,000 in Bitcoin somewhere back in May to prevent this data from ever getting leaked. And that hacker turned out to be a member of that Shiny Hunters group, who apparently also provided the proof of that transactions, which was also confirmed by other individuals that it actually pretty much was reflected on the cryptocurrency blockchain. So the thing is, when these companies get hacked, they pay these ransom guys actual money, and it adds up. Like, these guys are making millions of dollars breaching information and then basically threatening these people that, hey, if you don't want it leaked, pay us money. And sometimes these companies will just pay the money. It's serious cash to be made. So around this time too, somewhere back in June, when this breach was actually happening, there was one character known as White Warlock, all right, who was basically posting on a forum, a hacker forum, and was basically discussing these breaches. So this White Warlock guy basically made this post where he was selling data for the Santander bank breach, right? Countries affected: Spain, Chile, Uruguay. Data contained 30,000 customer data, 64,000 account numbers and balances, credit card numbers, HR employee lists, citizenship information, and much more information. And the price at the time was 2 million USD. Quite a lot of cash. So obviously people have to verify if this information is actually valid before you even consider paying the actual, ransom in this situation. And according to Cyberint, they had basically identified that apparently one of the accounts at a Lou was infected with that Luma spyware that I basically talked about at the beginning of the video, right? And of course they were looking at the malware log and they had found out right over here, this is the user at a Lou, according to the actual credential files that Cyberint had seen. So apparently it still wasn't enough to kind of invalidate that initial claim that it wasn't somebody at Snowflake that ended up getting hacked. Like they basically said, there was no information at the time. Apparently it seemed that it was more likely they gained access to prospect and sales related environments or production accounts. 500 demo instances were found in that malware log. Cyberint did not find a specific sensitive interface that would be expected to lead to sensitive data, such as the data trove that the threat actor at the time, White Warlock, even claimed to own. So these were again, just entirely different paths that you could go down trying to figure this out. But the point of the story is, one company that basically serves some of the biggest clients in the world was effectively doing the right thing. It seemed like they were just running this product. Whoever were working for these companies like AT&T or Neiman Marcus or the Santander bank groups, anybody that was affected by Snowflake had somebody in their group that since 2020, these managers, these people with IT and administrator level access effectively started getting hit with this ransomware, or not ransomware, but these, info stealers. They had their credentials stolen. And then this group, who basically planned this out ahead of time, very, very carefully, started to just grab treasure troves of data. And now we're sitting at a situation where hundreds of thousands, millions of people's personal information has been leaked. So realistically, what can you do in a situation like this? And unfortunately, there's not much you can do. All that effectively can be done is, A, make sure your politicians hold these companies to task, okay? Realistically, if you're going to be holding so much data, you should absolutely follow every single security step imaginable. There's no reason why a fucking YouTuber should be putting more effort into their security than somebody who manages a company like AT&T. That is absurd. But right now, all you can do is make sure your passwords are safe, use a password manager, and most importantly, call your credit monitoring firms. Stuff like this makes identity theft so much more possible that you can't even imagine. And all you can do right now is effectively make sure you're safe from people using your identity in an incredibly nefarious manner. Honestly, I think this shit kind of proves that the fragility of your data is so laughable at this point, right? You can do everything you can to protect yourself, but it takes one dipshit somewhere to launch one shitty application or download one shitty attachment and basically put millions of people's personal information at complete severe risk. I think it's insane we live in a world like that. And honestly, this whole situation is a wake-up call to everyone out there working in these industries to take this shit more seriously. But if you like what you saw, if you learned something, let me know in the comment section below. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.